Hello again, and welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and today I am going to do a video on power outages. And I actually had a fellow Ohioan who is a subscriber send me a screenshot and said, "Hey, did you see this?" And let me move over, and I will post the screenshot that I got sent right here. And I saw that they were talking about what to do in a power outage. All right, well, fair enough. Now, what do they recommend? All right, let's jump into it and see what they say. So I tracked down and I went to the website and I looked down through, which, interesting enough, we might do a lot more on this. Now, I know that 95% of you don't live in Ohio, but there's quite a few of you that live in Kentucky, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Michigan, all that. You're close. Now, some of you that live in Texas and Alaska and all this, you're going to have to kind of pick apart what you can use and what you can't use. But they had every, well, I won't say every, they had a good chunk of different topics that we could probably go over and talk about. And we're going to dissect it and kind of pick it apart and see what we agree with, what we disagree, how we can make it better, and what is, kind of some nonsense. So let's jump into it. So the first thing that they put on here is a disaster plan. Now I'm going to leave it up so that way you can read through it. Feel free to pause it if you need to, or rewind and go back so that way you can kind of read down. I tried to clip these short so that way it's quick and easy. The last slide that you will see will be relatively long, but I'm going to leave it up for quite a while so you can go through them and read it. But in this one, they go through and they basically tell you to build a disaster plan. All right, fair. Okay, yeah, you should have a disaster plan. The biggest thing for me is that they go through and they say food and water for everyone in the house for 72 hours. Okay. Yes and no. One of the things is I like that they put everyone in the household because you need to think outside of the box. Do you ever have people over? Because if you do, especially if it's on a regular basis, normally, I have 2 or 3 people over, every week. Okay. What happens if an SHTF event happens while you have company? Let's say you have a friend over for, an all day event. Let's say that you have family staying with you for the weekend or whatever. If you plan for you and your husband and wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, or a kid, so there's 2, 3, 4 of you in the house, and you go, okay, I need X amount of water for us. That's my goal. That's where I'm at. Okay. Well, now you have Uncle Bob and Aunt Ruth come over. If something happens while they're there, they're digging into your water supply. So it's one of those ones that you may want to consider if you have, company, even if it's not regularly, if you have them at all, if you have company, even, staying with you for a couple of days once a year, maybe around that time, you need to bump your water supply and your food supply and all that up until they're gone. And then you can bring it back down. I mean, obviously you got to that level. I would just stay at that level, but, it's something to think about. Now they do push that 72-hour thing. Now for beginning prepper, that's great. That's a really good starting point. 72 hours will give you a good starting goal to get to. And I know there's a lot of prepping channels out there that really push hard. Oh, you've got to have way more than that. And, well, yes, I do agree. You do need to have way more than that. It's a kind of a awakening moment for you. So most people that are not into preparedness will have that 2 to 3 day kind of relaxed period. So depending on what happens, let's say the internet goes out. People are, the internet goes out all the time. At least for most people, the internet, will go out once or twice a year for whatever reason. Solar flare, they're working on, some equipment. Something breaks, somebody hit a telephone pole. something happens. Let's see, even if we're going with the power grid, you lose power, bad storm, whatever, you lose power. It might be for 5 minutes, it might be for 5 hours, whatever. But 99% of people just don't panic. Every time, the lights go out and I can sit there for, 20 seconds and it doesn't come back on, I get up and I start doing. If it comes back on in a minute, okay. If it doesn't, I've got a head start. And that's the way that I operate. You have to do what works best for you. So, 72 hours, if you have 72 hours of food and water and you make it to where you're eating your last can and drinking your last bottle and the power's not back on, then all of a sudden you realize you have a much bigger situation on your hands than anything. For the people that don't have that, and there's a large population of the US that they don't have more than 24 hours. So you have a head start over a lot of people if you have just 3 days of food and water. Moving on, they recommend to have a kit. Good. Okay, I'm going to agree. In this, they give ideas such as a flashlight, a portable radio, batteries, first aid, bottled water. They say the 1 gallon per person. Non-perishables, food, a manual can opener. Keep that in mind. They push that a lot in this. I don't know why. Blankets, sleeping bag, protective clothing, and then they provide a link for more. Now, let's break that real fast. Flashlight, you should have more than one flashlight. Now, if you're just starting, get a flashlight if you don't have one. Every single person should have a flashlight. Portable radio. A NOAA is better. I think they even say that in here. That's the weather monitoring one. There's multiple radios you can get, and one of the things that they do not put in here, I don't think they put any sort of radio for communications. So if you can get a communications radio as well as some sort of two-way or receiving radio. So if you can get a NOAA radio, if you can get a CB, if you can get anything along the lines to where not only can you listen, but you can also send, that would be good. If you go down through, so batteries, yes, you should have backups for your batteries for whatever. If most of the things it seems like nowadays takes A's or double A's or triple A's, most things don't take C's and D's anymore unless you have like an old school mag light, which I have an old school mag light, so I have C's and D's here. But yeah, you should have backup batteries. First aid kit. There's not a single person on the planet that shouldn't have a first aid kit. If you don't have a first aid kit, most of the time I will say you've got to do what works best for you. I get you to think and all that. In this case, if you don't have a first aid kit, stop what you're doing, turn this off, go buy a first aid kit. I don't care what it is, go get a first aid kit, okay? It's that simple. We're all human. We all have accidents. If you've never got a paper cut, a splinter, something to where blood has come out of your body, it's coming real soon. What else do we have? So we have the bottled water, and they're saying 1 gallon per person per day. For 72 hours, yeah, 1 gallon will work. It'll do just fine. And that's what they're pushing. So with that, I would agree. Realistically, the absolute bare bones minimum would be 3 gallons of water per person per day. Non-perishable food, if you're talking 72 hours, you don't need the non-perishable part. If you're going to store food, yeah, non-perishable is what you need. 72 hours, most things aren't going to go bad. Yeah, your refrigerated stuff, but as long as you are careful enough, your fridge and freezer, if you didn't leave them open and things like that, especially if we're going into the wintertime, be smart about it. If you've gone 18 hours and the power's not out or power hasn't come back on and there's snow on the ground or it's 20 degrees outside, and if you're up there in Alaska and things like that, take that stuff outside. Manual can opener, yeah, you should have one. There's no excuse not to have one. They're 50 cents. 99 cents. Blankets. There should not be a single human on the planet that doesn't have a blanket. Sleeping bags. You're going to have to get it to where you are. If you're a Florida person, you're going to be different than a person up in Alaska. So make sure you get it for your climate area. Make sure it's rated for a little bit lower than your average. So if you're average, let's say you're in Tennessee and your average cool nights is 35 degrees, you probably want to get one that can go down to about 20 degrees just to be on the safe side. Because if you push the limits, you're going to have a cold night where you wish you didn't. So I always say go just a little bit below what your normal is and you should be okay. Protective clothing, by that they're kind of vague. I'm basically thinking it's going to be like PPE, so it's going to be gloves, safety glasses, maybe even like a safety vest, something high vis, so that way people can see you. And then the link. Okay, I'm curious. Let's click the link. All right, so as you can see in this one, they give out the minimum. Okay, so in this one, they break down the water. They say 1 gallon per person. And if you're staying at home for 2 weeks, if you are to evacuate for 3 days. So they basically, in a roundabout way, said if you're bugging out, you need to carry at least 3 gallons with you when you leave the house. Smart, okay? Yeah, 3 gallons to bug out is probably a great idea. To have enough per person for 2 weeks, it's a good starting point. Yeah, I want to give that one a pass. Food, they give the same thing. You need to have enough per person if you're staying home for 2 weeks. You need to have 3-day food supply if you're bugging out. Okay, yeah, I will agree with that. That's a good starting. You should be wanting to do better and move up. But if you're just starting out preparing, that's a great goal. Pass. Flashlight, we've discussed that. Get a flashlight if you don't have a flashlight. Okay. Pass. Radio, discuss that. Pass. Extra batteries, pass. First aid kit, we're not going back down that road. Go buy a first aid kit. Okay. This one, meds, so your medicine or medical items. Yes, if you take medication or you require some sort of medical item to function and operate, that needs to be part of your plan. There's a lot that goes into that, so you need to make sure that you have proper storage, proper labeling. If something happens to you and you're down and you're laying on the ground and you're going, quick, give me my heart medication, and there's 20 different pills in a Ziploc bag and somebody can't even figure out which one's which, you probably need to have them separated and labeled so others can help you if a bad event happens. Multi-tool. Yes, go get a multi-tool. They're relatively cheap. You can get a pretty decent one for $10 or less, $10, $15. Get a multi-tool. Documents. Documents are good to have. Now, most people want to think doomsday prepping to where the world's never coming back. Why would I need a document? We plan that whatever event happens, civilization will come back. Now, whether that's in 3 months, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, we plan to have civilization at some point back, and those documents will be very beneficial. Okay, so plan to have documentation. And it's not just things like medical records and things like that. That is anything along the lines of your car title, the title for your land, anything that is an important document. You should probably have some sort of way to have an official copy, and it should be near you at all times. So if you bug out, it should go with you. Cell phone and chargers, I think that's going to be the first thing that everybody grabs, so we don't need to discuss that. Family and emergency contact numbers. If you have your cell phone, it's in there. I don't necessarily agree with this one just because If you don't have your cell phone, then chances are uh, the chances of you getting to some sort of communications device to dial somebody, another family member's number during an SHTF situation is next to zero. Now, it costs you nothing to write it on a piece of paper. So if you want to do it, there's no harm in doing it. I mean, you could take a Sharpie and write it on your backpack if you wanted to. You're going to bug out, unzip your zipper, fold it down, write Bob 555. It costs you nothing and it takes up no room and it doesn't weigh anything. So I'm not going to say fail. We'll move on. They do say cash. Cash is a great idea. You should have cash. Cash will still hold value unless it's an economic SHTF. As long as it's anything else, if it is a cyber attack, if it is a grid down, if it is unrest, if it's anything, cash will still hold value for a while. It may only be 3 to 5 days, it may be 3 months, whatever, but cash will hold value as long as it's not an economic crisis. So you have a whole bunch of things that it'll hold value versus one it won't. It's probably better to have some cash on hand. Blankets, covered that. Maps is one of the ones. Get a paper map, okay? Even if you have to print it out. I know it might sound old. If you have to, go to the library, pull up Google Maps, print it out. I think most places a photocopy costs you 10 cents. Dig around in the couch cushions, come up with 50 cents or something, print out a couple of maps, put some clear tape on it so it's laminated. Make your own map if you have to, okay? You can order a bunch. If you have a rest stop near you, they offer them for free, especially if you live near the border of another state. Usually they have better maps there, but there's ways to get maps for free if you don't want to spend. Now, there's plenty of places that you can go get custom maps made. So there's a lot, but bottom line, get a map. Now, they go on and they say, here's some consideration for some additional items. So they go into medical first, and they go with hearing aids, glasses, contact lenses, cane, and some other things. I would venture to guess on all that, unless you're in an absolute panic, that stuff goes with you every day anyway. That's part of your EDC. Even if you're just running down to the supermarket, if you need glasses, you're taking your glasses with you. So I guess it's good to put it in there just as an in case, maybe have an extra pair of, all these items. But moving on, games and activities. This is a 50-50. This is either completely overlooked or people think about it and they either overdo it or underdo it. Make sure that when you're doing this, you do it in a smart way to where if you are not into playing cards, don't take a deck of cards, okay? It's kind of like on people with a pantry. When you start your pantry, get the food that you eat, okay? If you don't like green beans, don't stock up on green beans, okay? If there's things that you enjoy, see if there's a pocket version of it. There's all sorts of different ones. If you like to color, grab a few colored pencils and a little notebook, okay? Whatever you do, make sure that you have something that'll entertain you, small kids, other people you may come across, neighbors, whatever. But make sure you have something to keep your mind occupied. Books is another good one. There's multiple different things. Next is pet supplies. So if you have a pet, things like a collar, leash, they even threw in here shot records. Might be a good idea. If it's a short term, maybe the SHTF situation is a cyber attack. It knocks a whole bunch of things offline. They're permanently deleted, but things come back online 3 months later. Things are starting to come back, to where it seems like normal. but they can't get into the old information. If you were able to bring that documentation that, hey, my dog is, fully good, then it'll help you out in the long run. Two-way radios. So they did mention it. Okay. So yeah, get two-way, get a CB, get something. Combo is important. Extra keys. Extra keys is a good idea. And they were talking about car and house and things like that. Keys is for anything. So if you have a garage, a shed, a barn, anything that takes a key, you should have extra keys. Next is a manual can opener. Man, they push this. I think they list this multiple times. Buy one. Next is going to be a whistle. Whistles are invaluable. Okay, you can use them for a lot of different things. They're cheap. They weigh nothing. Kind of like these that I make. That's a whistle right here on the side of this. So you could literally put this on and you have a whistle on you at all times. There's multiple reasons to have a whistle. I encourage you, if you haven't thought about a whistle, it might be an idea to get you a whistle. Next is things like a surgical or an N95 mask. I see pluses on this. If it's really dusty, if you're going to be doing, different projects, if you're, doing something and it's questionable, it's better to put one on and, then you can take it back off or throw it away or whatever. But if you go into somewhere and you go, uh-oh, I need a mask, and you don't have one, you're going to wish you had one. So you might as well pack them. They're lightweight. I know the N95s are a little bit more expensive, but those surgical masks, you can usually pick them up just about anywhere. Even if you make your own now, the N95 is going to be better than throwing, a scarf or something around. But yeah. Next is going to be matches. Yes, any sort of fire starting. Matches are going to probably be best. Windproof, stormproof matches will probably be top tier on that one. Basic matches will follow next to it. Things like a Bic lighter. You should never probably leave your house without a Bic lighter. Zippo lighter is good. And then you should have alternative means. So you should have things like flint and steel. You should have maybe something like a ferro rod and a striker, which again comes into what I do when I make these. Here is your ferro rod, here is your striker. So having something like this, that's why they call them survivalist bracelets. You throw this on, they look kind of fun, things like that. But it gives you cordage, it gives you a fire starting way, it gives you a way for signaling and for other things. You can cross multiple things out with one little thing around your wrist. Next is rain gear. A lot of people skip over that. They don't even think about rain gear. Yeah, you should probably have some rain gear. Towels. Okay, depends. I throw in those tablet compressed towels just because they're cheap, they're lightweight, they don't take up any room or anything like that. I throw those in there because it would be good to have towels for some various things. If you can't get something like that, don't take your huge, big, fluffy beach towel and try and put it in your bag, because you're going to take up a third of the room with one item. Be smart about it. You don't necessarily need a towel. Okay. So that's a 50-50 borderline. Yeah. But if you feel like you need a towel, look into getting like those compressed tablet towels. Next is work gloves. Yes, you should have work gloves. This and your feet are going to be invaluable. If you can't move your hands and you can't walk, it's going to be really, really rough. Okay. Protect your feet, protect your hands. Don't get complacent. If you're in an SHTF situation, you're about to go do something that you normally wouldn't wear gloves, but you probably should, stop and put gloves on. Okay. Next is tools, and make sure it is hand tools. The power is only going to be on for so long. I know a lot of us like Milwaukee and Snap-on and, all those fun tools. Eventually the batteries are going to die, the tool will break or whatever, then you're without. If you have a hammer and a regular screwdriver and old manual wood saw, there you go. You take care of it, it'll last you. Extra clothes. Yes. Mainly things like socks and underwear. You would not be surprised on how many people ask me to go, hey, check out my bug out bag. And I go, cool. And I go, where's your socks? What? Or they'll pull it out. Look, I got a pair of socks. Okay, great. You did good. You did good. Where's your underwear? Well, trust me, you get out in an SHTF situation where you are freaked out. You are cold, you're hungry, you're exhausted, you've been walking for miles. It's been, you know, 36 hours. A fresh, clean pair of socks and underwear makes a world of difference. Trust me, okay? Throw it in there. Next is going to be plastic sheets, duct tape, scissors, things like that. I would take scissors out. Um, you can throw scissors in there. Really, you should have a set of shears in your medical kit. So that could be your scissors. You should have a knife instead of scissors because a knife will do multiple things. Um, I would substitute knife instead of scissors. Duct tape is an absolute must. You should get duct tape. If you can afford it, buy something better than Walmart brand duct tape, the knockoff of duct tape. If you can afford it, get something like Gorilla tape or something like that. Plastic, yes. If you can get a roll of plastic sheeting, and you got to get creative. Get on Facebook Marketplace, get on somewhere. There's a lot of times people will give that stuff away for free. They bought 10 rolls, they only needed 8, and they don't want it. And you can find some of them rolls for either really, really cheap or free, and they're invaluable for multiple reasons. We can probably do a whole video on what you can do for plastic sheeting. You can get your hands on some, grab some. And then the last thing is they put liquid bleach. Now, I wish they would have put a little asterisk next to this, parentheses, something. Plain liquid. Now, they did put liquid, not gel. Good job on them. But it needs to be unscented, plain, old school bleach. Okay? If you are trying to use that bleach for anything other than bleach, so if you try and use gel or you try and use scented to pour in to make your water drinkable, don't do that. Okay, that's bad. If you get the really old school just bleach, just plain liquid bleach, that gallon will go through. Now, bleach does have an expiration date, but that gallon, I mean, drops of bleach will treat gallons of water. One of the things that you can do because bleach has an expiration date is you can get pool shock. And you can get the little cubes, you can get it in powder form, you can get it in tablet form. As far as to my knowledge, that pool shock and things like that, as long as you store them correctly, they don't have an expiration date. So it might be something to look into. All right. So that's enough leaning for me. Overall, what did they do? For a beginner, for somebody that's not prepared, yeah, it passes. It gives you a lot of good ideas. I think there's some things like the scissors I think we should substitute. Now, granted, yes, you should have a pair of shears in your medical, but you should have a knife overall. And they didn't mention knife at 1. So minus a few points for them not mentioning a knife. Not only is it a great tool for using it to cut up food, it's a great tool for a lot of different things. Chop things down to create wood to be for fire. It's used as a self-defense tool. There's a lot of reasons to have a knife. You need to get a knife. Okay, so I would bump that. Let me know what you think. Okay, what did we go through on that list that you didn't like or disagree with? What did we go in there that gave you a good idea? Like, wow, I don't have something like that, and that was a good idea. What in here would you substitute? Or what in here could you go, hey, if you buy this, it would cover this, this, and this. It's a multi-use item that would, help take some of this list down by buying just one thing. Let me know what you think on that. Now, I know this is an Ohio one, so I encourage you because each state has their own. So I encourage you, if you live in Minnesota, look up Minnesota, government page and what they tell you to do on a power outage and see how it fares with the one that I shared with you about Ohio. So I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about all of this. Let me know if you think it's a pass or fail. I think as a beginning prepper, as a very basic list, I'll give it a pass. It's got a B on, there's definitely some more things that they could have added in here. I wish maybe they would have helped or asked me to help write it. I think we could have done a lot better job, but overall, we'll give them, B minus to a B on it. It's decent enough. This is something that will get somebody started and at least on a good roadmap to becoming better prepared. So it passes in my book. I will give it that. All right, guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do all the fun YouTube things. Hit like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so that way you can be notified for all future content that is going to come out. For me, that's all I've got on this video. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys made it this far, thank you so much. You rock. And there we have it. So stay tuned. More information to come. And say it with me now. Above everything else, remember to remain united, because we're all prepping in this together.